All right, guys, here we are with part 3 of the Toyota Camry steering lock issue. And where we last left off was the question about the brake switch. And following this part, I'm going to show you some important information that you must know about the brake switch and how it functions. So stay to the end on this one. So here we're going to do back at the PC, we're going to do a quick rundown on how the system works to see if there's something we missed. So basically, if we go from this section here, when the key signal is request signal, it answers by sending an ID code containing a response code through the glass antenna and door control. Upon receipt of the ID code, the certification ECU analyzes the code. If the interior certification passes, the indicator illuminates in green, and we have that, so we know all that is happening. It says then the certification ECU checks that the power source mode has been changed and sends steering lock command signal to the BCM, main body ECU. After receiving the signal, the main body supplies power to the steering lock actuator, which we're getting that, we tested that. Then via the ID code box, the steering lock ECU confirms that the certification ECU is certified and drives the steering actuated motor until the steering lock is unlocked. Now, we're not getting any kind of activity from the steering lock. We're not getting this is where I believe the hangup is, right? It says the steering lock ECU confirms that the certification ECU is certified and drives the steering actuated motor until the steering lock is unlocked. After it's unlocked, the unlock completed signal is sent to the certification ECU, okay? Upon receiving of this signal, the certification ECU unsets command signal to the ID code box. Once the signal is received, ID code box confirms that the certification ECU is certified, and then it releases the immobilizer. Okay, so we know we're getting all the way to at least this section, and this is where the errors actually happen, and that's why we still have a security light. We know there's a problem here. We're not getting any codes, and I'm going to show you what comes up, which is the only one error code, B2288. Nothing else comes up. There's no errors in the certification ECU, nothing like that, right? And just to show we were doing everything correctly, regarding the B2288 replacement of the BCM. It says when the main body ECU is replaced with a new one, it's telling you that the mode will be the same as you had when the battery was off. Important though, it says here, after the main body ECU is replaced, perform the registration procedure of the engine immobilizer system. So you click here on the info, and here we are to the registration procedure, right? That's telling you like you need to basically re-register like the key system, like what we did on the previous videos. But here's a matrix that shows you what you need to do in case you replace a certain part. So if we replace this part, here are the conditions, and that's what you need to do. These are the procedures, right? Now, if we go down to main body ECU, which is the BCM, no condition required, right? Replacement, replace the main body ECU, and that's it. There is actually no programming needed, even though it did say that. That's what kind of threw me off. I remembered there was some programming it did mention, but it's actually not necessary. And I actually observed the same behavior when I have the switch, the brake switch is activated on the replacement BCM and the original. It's behaving exactly the same. So that tells me the problem is most likely not with the BCM or the steering lock module. Well, the steering lock module is unlocked, so it still could be an issue with that, but the BCM, I'm very doubtful. So just a quick refresher, this is the diagram of the steering lock actuator. So you can see, you know, the diagram. Also, I'm gonna do a test on unlocking and locking this manually with the IM608. So, and the XP400, so stay tuned. Here's the OEM diagram, which is more realistic on the connections. So you can see how that is connected. So on our next plan of action, I dug a little deeper, and on looking at the symptoms, here's what we pretty much got. Okay, the steering wheel cannot be unlocked. Ours is actually unlocked, but there's no response, so I'm just going under that it's locked. So it doesn't, unless, okay, we've done that. We check for DTCs, there's none. There's no DTCs in the immobilizer. And here's the next step we've got to do. We've got to go in the smart box and check the lock, unlock, receive in the data list for the certification ECU, right? Now, I'm pretty sure this is what we're going to have, right? So it tells us to go to the next step, which is no steering unlock command, right? Which would be here. Steering wheel cannot be unlocked, no steering unlock command. All right, so it says check the S code, check item in the data list of the certification ECU displays okay. If it's no good, replace the ID code box. And then it says check that the L code. So if both of those or if one of them says no good, it's not receiving that, then the problem is actually going to be the ID code box. And I believe now, after everything I've done, and after you replace those, if it still doesn't work, you got to replace the certification ECU. After everything I'm done, I'm feeling the problem for sure now, because everything else has been eliminated. It's going to be between the actual ID code box or the certification ECU is what's bad. So that's going to be our next step on the next part of this video. We're going to check and see what we're getting here. Guys, here we are back at the bench. We're going to do a test. This is on the replacement steering lock column, and we're going to do a test by opening and closing this, which also, if you do this test, it clears out all the EEPROM data on here. So if this was working on your car, it will not. Since this is not programmed to our car at all, we're going to do it on this one right now. And you got to use the XP400 with the APA 107. And this is the configuration you're going to want to do. You're going to want to have your 12 volt on that first pin. I'll show you here. First pin is 12 volt. Last pin over there is ground. Then this one is going to be your VPP2, and then the L line will be, here it is right here on the IM608. So this is the configuration. You see that? Using APA 107. And the last one connects there, VPP2 to right there, right? I'm gonna show you how to get in here. So you're gonna navigate to your EMO and Toyota Camry, and then you're gonna come into control unit, ESL, which is the electronic steering lock module on the lens side. And you're going to go to open ESL, which is what we're going to do because ours is currently locked. Let me show you. When I try to, you hear that? It's locked. So this tells you that it is going to clear it out. If it has been programmed, hit yes. This gives you the details on it and configuration I just showed you. So here we're going to go, tell it okay. Establishing communication. See the light flashing on the XP400. I got an opening fail. Let me check my connections real quick. I might have something loose. By the way, I do have my 12 volt plugged in to the XP400. Okay, guys, this is actually about 20 minutes, 30 minutes later. What I realized, it failed, right? And what I realized was if you count the pins right here, there is from the left, the red, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? According to this drawing, this is like a 6-pin version of the ESL, the lock, steering column lock. And the version on the Camry in the USA is actually 7 pins, right? And also, the configuration they have here is wrong for this Camry as well. If you watch the first video, you'll know that we actually have 2 powers coming in. After this red one, on the car, it's actually pink. And the second color is black, which is also positive. It comes from the ignition when the key comes on. And then on that side, we actually have 2 grounds, right? So the first one ground is correct, but the second one where it goes VPP, that's like a 5-volt circuit, right? That they're powering up with that. And this steering column lock does not use that. That second position is also a ground. It's a black and white cable. Those 2 cables on this column lock is black and white. These 2, which is ground on Toyota. And the middle one, which is not here, right? But the 4th pin would be the one that I tested on the second video, I believe it was, between the body control module and the steering column lock, which the cable tested perfectly fine. So what I did, I tried various configurations. The way that I know it should be powered up, I have 2 grounds. So the purple wire now, I have it placed onto the ground side. And I gave it 2 powers, which these pretty much power up when the XP400 loads up. And I put the L line, I put it onto the LIN, which is the 3rd pin. Actually, looks like I'm missing the 2nd pin right there. Hold on, let's try that again. Yeah, so I tried it again. I was actually missing the 2nd power pin. But the 3rd one is the LIN line, if you look at the chart on my first video as well. And so I have it set up as it actually should be for this ESL, but it still does not work. I tried open, close. In the case that there's a fault with the motor, I actually tried to reset, which should just reset the, it should make communication with the actual board or chip on the EEPROM here and reset it, kind of like to factory settings. But that also fails. So that tells me it's most likely a communication problem, being that this setup here they have for the ESL is pretty much designed for the 6-pin version of the ESL, and it's using a 5-volt on VPP2. It's using a 5-volt reference to activate something. That tells me that the whole programming here is most likely not going to be compatible with this at all, and that's why none of these features are working for me. So this test or this step is not going to be able to prove anything right now for this column, if it's good or bad or whatnot. And this motor is activated by logic and not by a direct feed like this, unless of course I open the unit, then I can run power directly to the motor to open and close it, right? But as long as it's using these pinouts, this is through logic, so you cannot just run power to it like this and actually force open or close the motor, right? So now if you're in possibly Asia or Europe and your ESL is actually a 6-pin version instead of the 7-pin version I have on the 08 and 09 Camry here in the USA, or even in the USA a model that is a 6-pin version and not the 7-pin, this might actually work for you if the pinout is as shown on this diagram. So keep that in mind. But on this 7-pin version, I would say it's definitely a no-go. This functionality is useless in this current state unless they do an update at some point, but it will not work for this 7-pin version. All right, guys, back at the car, I got the replacement brake switch. This is the one on the top. FYI, there's also a little bumper that basically when you release the pedal, it causes this button to be pushed in, which turns off the brake light. Once you step on the brakes, it releases the button and turns on the brake light, right? On this switch, the brake light is constantly on whether the button's in or out, right? There's also a problem that can happen where it sits on a little plastic button, and you could buy that little plastic button from the dealer. If that button gets worn out or broken or knocked out of place, this button cannot be pushed. It'll just be a hole. So that can cause this issue as well. In this case, the button is in place, so it's going to be the switch. All right, and that's what it looks like. It comes with a little screw-on grommet deal that holds it right there, and it's a 4-pin connector. All right, so I got it plugged in. I'm just going to push the button with my finger, and as you can see, what's happening to the power button when I push the button in, it's like the brakes are released. Now when I let go of the button, it's like you're stepping on the brake pedal. So that pretty much confirms the switch was defective.